Hey, Dog Nation. My name is Brandon Adams. This is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans, presented by Marco's Pizza. So excited. We're getting in the car today, driving down to St. Simon's, as tomorrow we're just one day away from Georgia, Florida. Looking forward to the huge weekend around the cocktail party. Hope to see many of you there. Great show for us coming up before that. Our buddy David Green, the former Georgia quarterback, is going to be here. CBS Sports' Brad Ness are going to be here as well to preview the game against Florida and the great CBS telecast on Saturday afternoon. We are fully loaded, in other words, and that includes you, so we're glad you're here. DawgNation Daily, presented by Marco's Pizza, begins right now.
DawgNation.com. This is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans, presented by Marco's Pizza. Here's your host, Brandon Adams.
All right, folks, it is starting to get real. We are now reaching 2 days away on our Gatorade countdown. We've been doing it for the last 364 days, and now we are just 2 days away from Georgia, Florida, in Jacksonville, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. 2 days away here on our Gatorade countdown. Really excited about that, and excited about being with you tomorrow on day one, on a Gatorade Countdown Day 1, live tomorrow from the King and Prince Resort in fantastic St. Simon's Island, Georgia. Really looking forward to being there. 10 a.m. for our DawgNation Daily broadcast, and then at 4 p.m. for our Gatorade preview. Really hope to see you there for all of that coming up on tomorrow, Friday, at 10 a.m., 4 p.m. at the King and Prince there for what is going to be an awesome, awesome event. We'll look forward to being a part of all of that with you at the King and Prince Beach and Golf Resort, St. Simon's Island, Georgia tomorrow. Don't forget there are a few rooms maybe still left, but you got to call the King and Prince to get them and ask for the dog deal pricing. The number right there on your screen, 800-342-0212. That's 800-342-0212. But you've got to ask for the dog deal pricing to do that, and you can be with us there at the King and Prince Resort. So looking forward to seeing you there tomorrow. And, of course, the excitement, dare I say, a little bit of tension starting to build here for Georgia, Florida on Saturday. I saw where tight end Isaac Nauta met with the media yesterday. I thought that Mike Griffith had a great piece about this up at DawgNation.com. You can read this. And when you read the piece from Nauta, or the piece from Mike quoting Isaac Nauta, you really get the sense that Nauta doing a great job here setting the stage for what is going to be a really fun rivalry game on Saturday. And frankly, from my perspective, I'm glad to hear Nauta embrace this rivalry. You know, more than just a big football game, more than just the SEC East on the line here. No, what Nauta, who's now a little bit of a veteran, he's been around for a while, and he also knows the state of Florida pretty well, having lived in Jacksonville for a while. He appreciates this rivalry for more than its stakes in the SEC East race. He appreciates this rivalry because, or should this game, because of the rivalry that it is, and I certainly like that. So as a way of kind of getting us kicked off here today, and getting our conversation started about Georgia, Florida, let me let you hear a little bit from Nauta on what Georgia, Florida means to him. To start off with, as I said, Nauta lived there on the First Coast for a while, and Nauta certainly gained an appreciation for the game, given the fact that he's seen it a lot in the past. Here is Isaac Nauta explaining why he thinks Georgia, Florida is a pretty special game.
I spent a lot of time in Jacksonville. I lived there for about 8 years. Just playing in this game. I've been a part of it, as a fan. It's awesome. It's literally split right down the middle, half and half. It's kind of weird the way people file in because they're all out tailgating beforehand. So when everybody gets in there, it gets crazy. And it's just a really cool atmosphere. It's probably one of the best atmospheres in college football.
So I don't think anyone would dispute Nauta on that, and frankly, that's the kinds of ways we've heard Georgia, Florida talked about in the past. But one of the reasons why, way back in 2016, we started doing the Gatorade Countdown here on DawgNation Daily was because we wanted people to appreciate this for more than just the specialness of the game and the uniqueness of the atmosphere. We wanted this thing to have some teeth again. We wanted this rivalry to, have a nastiness. It doesn't mean that you're mean to people necessarily, but you certainly appreciate what's at stake here, and you certainly appreciate the celebration of rivalries, which make college football special. So from that standpoint, in the sporting sense, to hear Isaac Nauta say that he hates Florida, I got to tell you, I take that as very good news. Here is more from the Georgia tight end.
I don't really like these guys a whole lot, but that's just part of it. It's part of the Florida-Georgia rivalry. And, every time we, come into Jacksonville, we want to win this game. And, that's the mentality we take going into practice and into this week.
I mean, listen, my thought on that is for Isaac Nauta, say that again a little bit louder for the people in the back to hear, because that is exactly the way that a Georgia player ought to be talking about Florida going into this game. And notice the contrast here. Notice what you don't hear. Notice from Isaac Nauta, you don't hear, we're going to truck them. Notice from Isaac Nauta, you don't hear a level of disrespect for the players on that team. In other words, he's not saying their quarterback It's only capable of throwing slant passes. That's the kind of stuff that I think can get you in trouble going to a rivalry game. That kind of stuff certainly got Florida into trouble last year. This isn't arrogance or false bravado from Nauta. It's just simple honesty. I don't like Florida. This is a rivalry game where I want to play at my best. This is a rivalry game where I know my fan base wants to have me at my best. And if you're a Georgia fan, the fact that Nauta embracing that part of this, saying it out loud, verbalizing it, I got to tell you, I think it's a really cool thing. And something else that gets even cooler is Nauta kind of brings us down to field level here, explaining what it's really like on the field with these two teams that have players that knew each other growing up on the recruiting circuit, two teams that seem to have a lot of energy around this game. Nauta does a pretty good job of making you understand what all of that is like. Here's a little bit more from Nauta.
I know a lot of guys on their team, they love to talk, even from, the camp circuit and, 7-on-7s, and, it hasn't changed. There's definitely a carryover with it. And this is just a big trash-talking game. The last 2 years I've played in it, that's the way it's been. That's the way I think it'll always be. So, good old-fashioned hate between two teams that don't really like each other.
Now, long-time Georgia fans may deduct a point or two for the fact that he calls it good old-fashioned hate, which is a little bit of a knockoff of clean old-fashioned hate, which is the Georgia Tech game. But at this point, it's sort of like the line from the movie Animal House where he says, was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Just at this point, he's on a roll. Just go ahead and let him do what he's going to do here and say what he's going to say, because the overall essence of what Nauta says there, I completely and totally agree with. That it's good to have hatred on both sides. I'm not talking about nasty, mean-spirited stuff where it's uncomfortable to sit in the stands. We would never condone that or endorse that here on a DawgNation Daily, but the kind of stuff where you say, you know what, I am a Gator hater. We talk about being a Gator hater all the time. The first thing I packed in my suitcase to go down to a St. Simon's this afternoon is my Gator hater t-shirt. This notion of hating Florida being a good thing, the fact that Nauta verbalizes that, I think that's what Georgia fans would kind of want to hear from one of their team leaders going to the game. But here's what's also important. From that standpoint and a perspective of being a team leader, it's got to be about more than just hating your opponent. It's got to be about more than just having a little extra energy because it is a rivalry game. You've also got to balance that with some composure as well. And Isaac Nauta seems pretty well-versed in understanding just how important that aspect, the calmness to go along with the intensity is for a game like this. You'll like this from Nauta too.
They don't like us and we don't like them. But this game is about composure too. You can't get caught, out of control, and the next thing you know, you're costing the team, because you can't keep your mouth shut. But there's some words swapped during the game.
Yeah, listen, I love the idea that Nauta says, I want to be out there swapping words with people, but I'm not going to do so in a way that's going to cause me to lose my composure, put my team in a bad spot with a 15-yard penalty. I really like that from Isaac Nauta. And in a weird way, I sort of think that a rivalry game for Georgia, the kind of game where just winning the game in and of itself right now feels like an accomplishment, a rivalry game for Georgia comes at a really good time. For the first half of this season, I think Georgia fans have been kind of white-knuckled a little bit, a little nervous, a little tense. It's been all about keeping pace with Alabama and all about getting back to college football playoff, and therefore no one win was ever going to be satisfying because it was always extrapolating of how does this win project to a different opponent and how would Georgia look if it was in the college football playoff right now or, something along those lines. But a game like Florida, in and of itself, feels like an accomplishment, and not just because Florida's ranked in the top 10 right now, but also because of the fact that, as Nauta said, these are two teams that just don't like each other very much. It's a pretty good distraction from the bigger picture here for a moment. Now, as it turns out, gaining those bigger picture perspectives, those future goals and objectives, does require beating Florida. But on Saturday, all anybody's going to think about is who's going to be hoisting that victory cigar, proverbially speaking, and who's going to be showing no smiles right there in Jackson when the game's over. And it sounds like Isaac Nauta believes that his Georgia teammates have a great chance of doing just that. My name is Brandon Adams. This is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans, presented by Marco's Pizza. Hello to you. Thanks for being with us live on video here, 10 a.m., DawgNation Facebook, YouTube, Twitter feed, radio at noon on Athens Sports Radio 960 The Ref, and in podcast form, wherever podcasts can be found, the Apple Podcast Player, the Google Podcast Player, SoundCloud, the world-famous DawgNation.com. Really glad to have you on the program here today. Coming up later on, we'll talk to CBS Sports' Brad Nessler, the guy who's going to have the play-by-play call on TV on Saturday. He'll help us preview the cocktail party. We'll also catch up with David Green here, our buddy, the former Georgia quarterback, who was good enough to be with us here today as well to talk a little Georgia-Florida. We'll get into the quarterback situation with David here a little bit. I think that's going to be really interesting. David was also with us last night at Marlowe's in Dunwoody. What an incredible event we had there in Dunwoody last night. A huge crowd. Thank you all so much for coming. A lot of fun. A lot of dog fans excited about being in and around Jacksonville on Saturday. We heard some folks saying they're coming to see us in St. Simon's on Friday. So I'm just really excited about the energy that's around Dog Nation right now, heading towards the Georgia game in the regular season anyway, that I believe matters more than any other. Our Gator Hater countdown rolling on. Marlowe's is a great place to be for that, and looking forward to being in St. Simon's tomorrow. By the way, speaking of Marlowe's, later on in our program, I'll also tell you how you can be a part of our final Marlowe's broadcast of the regular season, and I'll reveal a special guest who's going to join us for that. We will do that later on here today. Let me also remind you that we're brought to you today by Marco's Pizza. Our friends there at Marco's who've got a great everyday low price value for you. Take advantage of this offer. 2 medium, 2 topping pizzas for just $6.99 each. It's authentic Italian quality pizza every store, every day, the Italian way. So say hello primo by checking out marcos.com and taking advantage of that great offer. 2 medium, 2 topping pizzas for $6.99 each. All right, before we do anything else on today's program, I want to go back to about a year ago or so. And many of you will remember that one of my good buddies is Mike Johnson, who a longtime partner of mine here on the airwaves, and a guy that we still have from time to time here on DawgNation Daily. Mike's actually doing a radio show at the same time we do DawgNation Daily now, so otherwise he'd probably be with us here this week to talk about some of these games. But I'm thinking back to an appearance that Mike Johnson, the former Alabama All-American, longtime NFL guy with the Atlanta Falcons, I'm thinking back to something that he said on DawgNation Daily a year ago. And I think it's really important that we bring this back here today as an explanation of what it's truly like for rivalry games behind the scenes. You'll remember that Mike comes to Alabama at a time in which Auburn was dominating the Iron Bowl. Auburn had won every year for years and years and years, all of Mike's career up to this point, including Saban's first year in 2007. And going into the 2008 Iron Bowl, Mike Johnson says that there was a change in Nick Saban in terms of how he talked about that game. And this is the kind of thing that you're not going to get from the media. Saban's not going to talk about this publicly. But for a guy who was in the locker room with Saban at that time in which the Iron Bowl rivalry flipped, I think this is a great story because obviously there's a parallel here between Georgia and Florida, a rivalry that dog fans also hoped flipped a year ago, but becomes even more important now given the fact that Florida's better this year than they were in 2017. So listen to the story here from Mike Johnson. It's a great insight into how Nick Saban approached a rivalry game, and let's see if we can glean any insight in terms of how maybe Georgia's approaching rivalry games against Florida, even though publicly they're not talking too much about it. Here is Mike Johnson talking about Nick Saban.
That was Nick Saban's first taste of the rivalry, really. So I don't think he understood it. Throughout the week, he kind of explained it to us like, hey, guys, this rivalry means a lot to a lot of people in this state. And it was so funny because when you come back in 2008 and Nick Saban had tasted a little bit of loss on that side of the rivalry, it was almost like he was more irritated. He was like, hey, this game means a lot to everybody in this locker room now. You know, this game, this is a big deal for this football team and for this university and for this athletic department. You know, it was almost like getting a taste of that loss the year before to Tommy Tuberville and company really amped him up to try to go out on a ledge and really develop that team in a way to kind of put Auburn behind us. I think it's different for Kirby Smart. Obviously, he's been a part of that rivalry, so he understands that and maybe a little bit better than most people that are coming from the outside in. And I think that you try to play into the player's psyche when you talk about these rivalry games.
So I think that's really interesting because obviously Nick Saban would never say the things out loud that Mike Johnson says about Nick Saban there. He tells the story of what was happening behind the scenes. And at Georgia, the situation seems similar here. Kirby Smart does not talk publicly a lot about rivalries. He says that Georgia has lots of rivalries and that SEC East games are important because you're trying to win the SEC. But that's sort of is the word antiseptic? That's sort of an antiseptic way to talk about the situation of Georgia-Florida and not at all in keeping with the way a guy like Isaac Nauta views this game, apparently, based on the audio we heard from him a moment ago. I think that Georgia fans ought to take some comfort, though, that Kirby Smart doesn't always have to tell us everything that he's thinking, and that privately they can say things behind closed doors they don't necessarily say publicly. There is some evidence that some of that stuff may be going on at Georgia here this week. I saw our buddy Brandon Sudge had on Twitter a report from what he's seen around the athletic complex there at the Buttsmere Heritage Hall about some of the signs and some of the discussions and stuff. I think we can show that to you here and talk about some of the stuff that maybe while Georgia's not talking about this stuff necessarily publicly, privately, as Brandon Sudge puts out on Twitter, that Dan Mullen's "even a blind squirrel finds a nut" quote and C.C. Jefferson's "when we beat Georgia" statement is taped to the weight room windows this week. That means Georgia clearly privately is saying some things about this game they're not necessarily saying publicly which is an important thing to remember here as the Gator-Hater rivalry rolls on. Speaking of blind nuts, I do notice that Eddie's not on my desk here. He's actually right over there if we want to get Eddie on stage here and let him be a part of the show here in just a moment. While we do that, I'll also remind you that while we celebrate what happens for Georgia on the football field, we also celebrate what happens in the classroom as well. And since 1785, UGA has sought to bring exceptional and affordable college education to those seeking higher learning. UGA has ranked as a top 20 best value university every year. The Kiplinger's has done that in its personal finance magazine. And it's UGA is also ranked as the 12th among all public universities in the country here this year. Even with the Hope Scholarship and the Zell Miller Scholarships, though, some students struggle to cover the full cost of attendance. That's why UGA donors have established thousands of scholarships that are paving the way for students to succeed. Now, some of these offerings, like the Georgia Commitment Scholarship Program, have created opportunities for students who otherwise would not have the chance. We know what it means to be a Bulldog, but we also know that other people want to find out that as well. They want to feel the same feelings. That's why for those who need, you have a chance to contribute by going to this very special website. It's give.uga.edu. That's give.uga.edu. Eddie is now with us. We are ready to roll here. He is ready to fire up and be in Jacksonville on Saturday. We're glad you're with us, too. Brad Nessler later on. Hope you enjoy our buddy David Green right now. And he was with us last night, and what a great time we had there at the Marlowe's in Dunwoody. And I got to tell you, David, you were kind enough to point me towards Tailgate Apparel in Athens. I was wearing the Tailgate Apparel sweatshirt last night. I got so many compliments on our show yesterday and at Marlowe's in Dunwoody last night for the Tailgate Apparel gear that I was wearing. And you know what? It's finally cold enough to start wearing some of these sweatshirts like I was wearing last night. I got to tell you, that is it's kind of a nice thing to be bundled up and well taken care of as the weather turns a little cooler here. It's also pretty cool today. It's another good time for one of those Tailgate Apparel sweatshirts. How much fun was that last night at the Marlowe's in Dunwoody?
Yeah, I tell you what, it was a good time. You know, anytime you get a bunch of Georgia fans get together and the excitement, obviously everybody, talking about the team and where are we at and how we're going to get better and how we're going to take the next step, what are we going to do against Florida. It's just fun. The passion and the fan base that we have and how passionate our fans are, that's what makes it fun. Obviously, when times are good, we're playing great, it's that much more fun. When times are bad, it's challenging. But the one good thing about it, there's never a dull moment, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's always fun for me because we have a lot of these events at Marlowe's before our big games, whether it be the Georgia game against Florida coming up on Saturday, and you kind of get a little bit of a temperature on the fan base. And I think you would agree that based on the Georgia fans we talked to last night at Marlowe's, there is a kind of a combination of certainly a genuine excitement about the game against Florida, but also some nervousness maybe coming off the LSU loss. And, I mean, some of that is still being kind of sifted through here from the fan base, probably fair to say, right?
Yeah, and I would say, Brandon, look, I think we're at a point now where the good news is we still control our own destiny at this point. But it is late October, and we haven't been playing our best ball yet. And so the good news is you don't want to be the team that peaks in September. You want to be the team that's peaking in November and December and January. But we got to take that next step. So it's certainly not a time to panic by any means, but the sense of urgency is there right now. I mean, we've got tremendous talent. We've got good players. We've got to find some leadership within this team. We've got to have some guys that are willing to step up. And when it's time to make those plays, we got to start making them.
So we heard some really interesting audio from tight end Isaac Nauta before you joined us about what the Florida rivalry specifically means to him. He lived in Jacksonville for a while. He grew up with a lot of Florida fans. He somewhat half-kiddingly said, I don't like Florida very much here. I think a lot of Georgia fans appreciate the fact that Georgia players approach this as a rivalry. You played in this game. You had a great win against Florida in 2004. What does it mean to you in particular? I loved hearing some of your stories about this last night in terms of why you value and why you care about this Georgia-Florida rivalry. What does the cocktail party mean to you as a former player, David?
Well, it's a huge game for us. It's a huge game for both teams, let's face it, because, when you talk about Georgia and Florida, those are predominantly the two teams that have, kind of controlled the East, and you throw Tennessee in there as well. But it's a huge game. Look, I mean, the Georgia fan base have always traveled well to this game. Everybody comes down to St. Simon Sea Island. It's a huge party, but there's a lot of history there. It's a must-win game. I mean, let's face it, both teams got a loss. If you get two losses, you don't control your own destiny at that point. But right now, both teams, Georgia and Florida, control their own destiny, and it's a must-win game. But, for me personally, it was one of those games that there was so much at stake year in and year out when we played this game that, we had the opportunity to come out there and play. We had to make the most of it. So it was tough. In my first 3 years, we didn't get that win, but it sure was nice going out on top my senior year.
Yeah, no doubt about that. The Fred Gibson touchdown catch that you threw there was a great memory for many of us going back to that 2004 game. And, one of the things that Nauta also talked about a moment ago was that while you get amped up, while you treat it as a rivalry, you see all the pageantry, the 50-50 split with the crowd, the driving over the bridge there to see all the, tailgaters already in place. You experience all of that. There's also the opposite side of the coin, which is equally important, which is keeping your composure. Now, as a quarterback, you were a team leader. What do you remember saying to players, in the past about composure in a game like this? And what would be your message today about just how important composure, in addition to intensity, of course, but on the other side of that, how important composure is also when it comes to a game like this?
Yeah, getting excited to play this game is never an issue. I mean, guys are always fired up. The atmosphere is incredible. The key is just realizing, not getting caught up in all the hoopla and what all's taking place down there in Jacksonville and how big the game is and the importance of it to the season. You got to just concentrate on the X and the O's and the game plan. How are we going to win? What do we need to do in certain situations? To just really concentrate on the X's and O's. And you've heard Saban say, and a lot of coaches, say, look, only worry about the things that you can control. And the atmosphere and what's at stake, those are things that are bigger than what you can control. But just, as Bill Belichick always says, just do your job. And if every guy can just go out there and just do your job, chances are you're probably going to come out on top.
And to kind of follow up on some of that a little bit, too, in addition to the CBS telecast, which is a big deal, that's all 50 states, that's probably the highest rated game of the day almost. There's also ESPN Game Day there as well. I remember back when you were playing, that was kind of in the heyday of ESPN's College Game Day, with Herb Street and Corso, and back then it was Chris Fowler, it's Reese Davis. Now, I'm imagining, though, that's probably still a pretty big deal to these players as well. Many of them wake up and, see some of that TV stuff before they get over to the stadium to play their own game. I imagine that also with that TV show back there at 9 a.m. in Jacksonville, I imagine that also kind of adds to some of this a little bit, too.
It was fun as a player to wake up and have breakfast and go to a meeting, and then you see game days there where you're playing. So it's the magnitude of the game. It's huge. But like you said, use it as excitement, but don't let it get carried. Don't let it get you out of your typical routine. And I think every player at this point, you got a pretty good idea of what your mindset and your temperament needs to be like to play at your best. And every player is a little bit different. I was one. I couldn't get too excited. I had to be almost robotic a little bit in my approach and my emotions because, as I mentioned to you last night, Brandon, if I got too excited, I started overthrowing everybody.
Yeah.
And what I felt like would be a 20-yard comeback, the way I saw it was going 25, 30 yards, which was not good. So I had to really dial it back for me. But every player's different. But the key is you got to find the zone that works for you and prepare that way.
So we talked also last night at Marlowe's a little bit about the quarterback situation. I thought you had some really interesting things to say, obviously given your background as a former great quarterback at Georgia. And one of the things I think that you said that I think a lot of Georgia fans have also echoed here this week is, if you're going to play Fields, you've got to do more than just pop him in for one play and pull him right back out. That's really affecting the rhythm of both Fields and Fromm. But it sounds like, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'll let you answer the question for yourself. It sounds like, though, that you are still very confident that Jake Fromm can bounce back, have a better game against Florida than he had against LSU, and you certainly seem to still be holding on to a lot of confidence that Fromm's going to play much better on Saturday.
Oh, there's no question. Look, what Fromm's already showed the fan base and really the country what he can do. I mean, he took us to the dance last year and had a phenomenal year, and he wasn't just a role player. I mean, he was one of the main reasons offensively that we were there. I would really put all my eggs in a basket of making sure we get him comfortable in what he's doing because he's already proven we can win and we can win championships with him at quarterback. Now, when it comes to Fields, he is a tremendous talent, and a lot of people he can get labeled as a runner. But I think the Georgia fans that know that have watched him play, he can throw the ball. You would hate to see him come in just specifically for run plays because he's a talented passer. And as a quarterback, too, you can feel it when a coach doesn't seem to have confidence that you can go out there and let it rip or just kind of putting a tighter leash on you. You get that feel as well. And a kid that's that talented, although you don't want to put him in situations where he can be reckless and turn the ball over, you can still create some plays where he can get out there and throw the ball as well and kind of take the handcuffs off of him.
Before we let you go, I want to talk a little bit more about what could be coming up at Tailgate Apparel before the Auburn game. Let me squeeze in one more quick final one, which is simply a cocktail party prediction. I know that some folks last night at the Marlows and Dunwoody got a chance to hear your thoughts on the game, but ultimately, what do you think and how do you think it plays out between Georgia and Florida on Saturday?
Well, I think, first of all, Georgia's going to be committed to stopping their run game. One thing about Florida, Felipe Franks, he can hit some big plays. He's got a big arm, but he's not extremely accurate. Kirby's going to be certainly committed to putting an extra guy in the box every play and make Felipe beat him with his arm. And when it comes to Georgia's offense, we've got to stay out of the third and long situations. That's one thing Grantham does. He loves exotic blitz packages. He loves to put pressure on the quarterback. And look, if it's situations where he's going to pin his ears back and be aggressive, we need to be aggressive as well. We need to burn them. When they decide to bring the house, we've got enough talented receivers out wide where we can make them pay and run. Be committed from the start to running the football. And I think we got away from that last week or 2 weeks ago against LSU. We've got good running backs. They opened up some holes against LSU. And we got away from it. I think we need to be committed to the running game a little bit more.
So it's the still a couple weeks away from the next home game in Athens. It's November 10th against Auburn, but we do know the Tailgate Apparel, which is 279 East Broad Street, right there in downtown Athens in the old Harry Bissett's building. I was wearing the Tailgate Apparel gear yesterday. Got a ton of compliments about that. And one of the things I also hear from a lot of people on is how much fun Tailgate Apparel is before these home games on Saturday. And David, it's been a great collection of former Dogs like Sean Jones, and you've been there, and we've just seen a whole host of former Georgia players signing autographs before home games at Tailgate Apparel over the last few weeks. And I know when we get towards the Auburn game, maybe we'll have the announcement for that sometime soon. I know that you'll have another great showing of folks coming out for a terrific autograph signing before the Auburn game here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I tell you, it's been fun. We've had Boss Bailey, Terrence Edwards, Sean Jones, and Lindsey Scott, that came for the Vanderbilt game. But coming up against Auburn, I think we're going to have Tim Jennings. Remember old Timmy J? I mean, what a player. He was a tremendous teammate, went Pro Bowls, and a tremendous player. I think he's going to probably come out here for Auburn. It's not 100% convinced or committed yet, but I think he's probably going to be there for Auburn. I think I mentioned last week or 2 weeks ago, Knox Culpepper's already locked in for Georgia Tech.
That's
so a lot of the old Dog fans that are excited and watch those 80 team, man, what a game and career he had at Georgia. And I think he had like 28 tackles against Tech that 1 year. But good people. I'm excited. I know Tailgate's excited to have them as well.
And I will tell you, David, before we let you go, one of the great things about you and these former players that come to events like this is it's not just the autograph and the chance to maybe get a picture, but it's some of the stories that you hear while a lot of that's going on. And that's what, hanging out in a place like Tailgate Apparel on a, before a game, that's what ends up being a lot of fun, is because you're going to hear some of those moments of, the great glory days, the early 80s from Knox Culpepper, or, when some of the other guys have been there this year, hearkening back to their era there as well. You guys obviously are very, willing to kind of, talk about some of your own memories there, which I think makes stuff like that really fun because, for so many of us, those were the stories of our either young adulthood or childhood or, whatever period of life it may have been. Those are cherished moments for us, and to actually get a chance to rub elbows with the people who contributed to those moments and memories. That's one of the things that's really fun about being at a Tailgate Apparel before a game like that.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun watching it too, Brandon. So, a lot of the fans, they've seen the guys play, and but they don't know who's behind the helmet. And so when they get to come out there and meet the guys, and you say, oh my gosh, this guy was a beast on the field, but he's so nice in person. That's true with a lot of the guys. You step between the lines and they're a different person, but when they get off the field and they get in environments like that, they're excited to meet the fans as the fans are excited to meet them.
Also, folks, don't forget it's November coming up, and it's going to be a lot of holiday shopping there. Tailgate Apparel, perfect place to do that as well. It's 279 East Broad Street right there in downtown Athens. David, it is certainly good of you to give some of your time over to us today. We appreciate the chance to chat with you at the cocktail party. We hope you enjoy the weekend, enjoy the game, and we'll look forward to hopefully getting a chance to speak to you soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, Brandon.
Good stuff there from David Green, the former Georgia quarterback, and I do mean that on both fronts. I love the apparel from Tailgate Apparel, and I love the chance to hang out with some former Georgia greats, and Tailgate Apparel gives you a chance to catch up with both of them there. That's really good stuff. There is also one more thing that David mentions that I think is really important. And obviously being the former quarterback, this is the mindset that he's going to have. But if you're a Georgia fan, I think you like this. As much as we've talked this week about, hey, the need to, establish the run, the need to feed Elijah Holyfield, challenge Florida in that regard, stop Florida's run. As much as we've sort of talked about this game as being a line of scrimmage type game, the one thing that David also says here is Todd Grantham, a defensive coordinator on the other side, who's known for being a blitzer. He's known for wanting to send quarterback pressure. Georgia's got to match that pressure and got to protect the quarterback here. We know that. But David also says you've got to use this as an opportunity to make him pay for sending the extra pass rusher. Protect it, block it, find the deep route, and really make your big play opportunity at a time when Todd Grantham's gambling the most. Probably not a surprise the former quarterback's thinking that way, but in this case, the former quarterback's probably right. That as much as we talk about lines of scrimmage, big plays are also going to go a long way towards determining who wins this game on Saturday. And Georgia looking for big plays at a time when Grantham maybe gets a little too greedy and tries to gamble, that could be a terrific way that this game gets decided. Before we move on, let me also remind you that Kroger's got some great deals coming up here this week. Right now, you can do buy one, get one sales with monster savings on all kinds of items like Edie's ice cream, Oscar Mayer hot dogs, Pepsi, and everything in between. And don't forget, you can continue to gobble up the savings there when it comes to the Halloween stuff as well. The candy, the Halloween cookies, the decorations, it's all there for your local Atlanta Kroger. Go ahead and get stocked up and ready to go on that. Don't forget, Halloween is next Wednesday. Don't all this football distract you from getting all the candy and the stuff you need to get ready to go there. And, of course, we'll look forward to enjoying that some next week. But for now, DawgNation Daily's rolling on.
Let's take a look around the rest of the league. This is SEC Through.
You always love having David Green on the program. Don't forget, coming up in a couple of minutes, we're also going to get Brad Nessler from CBS Sports, the terrific play-by-play broadcaster who will call the game on Saturday with Gary Danielson. We'll look forward to having him on the program here, too. Before that, though, let's take a brief moment to talk about some of the other SEC games here this week as we transition to our SEC Through with our MyBookie Best Bets. And let me remind you once again here that MyBookie has let us know that MyBookie's offering the 100% bonus for the last time for new signups here this week. That means once the games kick off on Sunday, that opportunity is no longer there. So make sure you act right now to take advantage of that. You got to go find MyBookie online. That's MyBookie. Find MyBookie online and use the promo code DawgNation, all one word, spelled the way it's supposed to be, DAWG. Find MyBookie online, use the promo code DawgNation. You can be in and get that dollar-for-dollar match, but you got to do that right now. This is apparently the last week that MyBookie's going to offer that, so take advantage of that pretty quickly. I'll also invite you to check out MyBookie on social media at BetMyBookie. That's the handle, at BetMyBookie, on both Twitter and Instagram. They respond to all their direct messages, all their mentions, and they've also given away nearly $10,000 worth of free money to their followers this football season. So find them on social media, follow on Twitter or Instagram at BetMyBookie. Make sure you use the promo code DawgNation, of course, when you sign up there. All right, it's time to take a look at some of these other SEC games. There are some very interesting point spreads in the SEC this weekend. Very interesting point spreads. Now, Alabama and LSU are off. Auburn's also off, so that takes some of the juice away from some of the weekend here. The big game is, of course, Georgia versus Florida. So the slate might not necessarily look all that enticing right away, but some really intriguing point spreads. First of all, how about Arkansas being a home underdog to Vanderbilt? Now, if you've seen Arkansas play this year, that certainly makes sense. But what a disaster for Chad Morris in that program that they are getting points from Vanderbilt in a game in which they are hosting the Commodores here. This also may be one of those games in which the Hogs fans leave really doubting Chad Morris's future here. I just think that Vegas is trying to tell you something. My bookie here is trying to tell you something when it comes to what's going on with Vanderbilt. Not a great team, but better than Arkansas, better quarterback, better overall, just a better, I think right now probably a better overall roster. Morris and Mason, two interesting counterparts when it comes to coaching here. But I believe I'll take Vanderbilt. It's crazy to even think about this. I'm going to take Vanderbilt as a home favorite, or I should say a road favorite. Vanderbilt as a road favorite as a MyBookie best bet. Give me the Commodores. How about, though, and what's maybe the most intriguing of the point spreads for this week, how about Missouri at home as a 7-point favorite against Kentucky? Kentucky, who could, if they win this game, probably be in the top 10 of the college football playoff top 25 when it comes out next week. But as it stands right now, Kentucky is a 7-point underdog to Missouri. There's also a chance that based on some of the other movement around the web here, this thing could go to 7.5 at some point in time. So if you like Kentucky, you may actually really get some points here. This also feels like the kind of game in which maybe this is just too much for Kentucky, too much to win this game, too much to set up for another big home game against Georgia next week. You know, the same way that they just couldn't quite handle the pressure of being on the road at Texas A&M, maybe the pressure of being at Missouri. You know, Missouri this week has gotten some love from the analytics community for being a little bit better on offense than maybe you realize. I think overall this is a stay-away game for me. Missouri didn't show me very much in the South Carolina game, for instance. I'm not buying into Missouri a whole lot. Playing close with Purdue, though, for the Tigers now looks a little bit better based on the fact that Purdue just beat Ohio State. I'm not going to read too much into that. Overall, I'm staying away from this, but I thought you might get a little curiosity of the fact that Kentucky, big record, nice ranking on the road as a 7-point underdog at Missouri. You placed the Georgia one by 14 points earlier in the season. I am, though, going to make a MyBookie best bet on the next game here. Mississippi State as a home favorite of 2 points. Defensively, actually looked pretty good against LSU last week. Gave up less than 4 yards per play to the Tigers here. But this is a game in which I think that Jimbo Fisher, more experienced than Joe Moorhead, I just think he asserts himself. I think he establishes himself here in a big way. I think this is the kind of game where A&M probably wins on the road. I think they cover the number easy. I'm going to go ahead and say that A&M as a 2-point underdog, kind of a strange point spread there, is a MyBookie best bet. Give me the Aggies there on that. And then finally we get to Tennessee at South Carolina. What's interesting about this is that Tennessee is Tennessee's a pretty big underdog here. 7.5 points to South Carolina. The Vols got completely rocked last week against Alabama. Got the win against Auburn. But overall, this is a situation in which I'm still going to be a little bit of a believer in South Carolina. Give me the Gamecocks minus the 7.5. I'll make them a MyBookie best bet, and we will make that your SEC through. And here on a DawgNation Daily presented by Marco's Pizza, let's shift our gears back to the cocktail party on Saturday. The guy who will call the action on CBS is Brad Nessler. He's a good friend of our program, and it's great to have him back here again today. Brad, thanks so much for your time. How are you doing?
Hey, Brandon, how are you, man?
I'm doing really well, and I guess let me start with this, Brad, if you don't mind. You know, it's a unique situation for TV because Georgia-Florida is one of those few games at the beginning of the season that we kind of always know where it's going to be, what time it's going to be before the season even starts. CBS has been a great partner for that Georgia-Florida game. From a CBS perspective, what is so special about Georgia-Florida that it almost gets a status that a lot of the other SEC games don't get of, well, we already know that's going to be Saturday at 3:30 on CBS. What do the national folks see when they look in on the cocktail party here?
I think just the way it is set up, about the only thing I can think of that it's the equivalent of would be OU in Texas at State Fair in Dallas, at the Cotton Bowl. Cut right down the middle, blue and orange, red and black, same thing when you're doing Oklahoma and Texas. And I just think fans, around the country that maybe don't care about who wins the game kind of look at that and go, that's really unique. And the setting is as well. To be honest with you, it'd be fine with me if this game was a home-and-home deal, but Jacksonville has been Jacksonville for years and years and years, and I don't think it's going to change, at least not through 2021 or whatever they have it set up for. So just the uniqueness of it, you feel it when you get there, You're like leaving the hotel, you're coming over the bridge, and you just see the enormous amount of people, and we pull our bus in, and our bus gets mugged, and it's a lot of fun for us. I guess it's just a fun factor for me.
If you and I were talking in the summer about this game, I don't think either one of us would have thought that maybe Florida's ranked in the top 10, has the record that the Gators have here. What have you made about the seemingly quick turnaround that Dan Mullins had there compared to where Jim McElwain had that program heading into this game a year ago?
I just think, it's better coaching for sure, and Dan's a big part of that. Not just him, but his coordinators. I thought their defense would be pretty good. It's probably better than I thought it was going to be. Todd Grantham has done a good job with that group. Dan's done a good job with his quarterback, knowing the things that he can do, Felipe Franks, and what he can't do. And his confidence level has grown so much that he actually has become a threat. I still think if you're Georgia, you make him beat you, Felipe Franks, that is. But he's just a lot better quarterback, a year more experience. They're better on offense than I thought they were going to be. As you said, I'm shocked. I might have thought they'd be 4-something right now or 5-2, but not 6-1 and ranked in the top 10. No way.
Well, on another subject that's not quite as enjoyable for my audience to discuss, you saw it with your own eyes 2 Saturdays ago. What happened against LSU for Georgia, Brad?
You know, I just wonder, Brandon, if it's an aberration, if it's kind of a blip on the radar, or if that's who Georgia is, because we knew going in, and, you know, I think we've all talked about it, we weren't sure because of the first 6 opponents. They were supposed to beat them, and they did it soundly. But everybody, all the Georgia fans were still at that point saying, we're beating everybody by 30, but I don't know. It's just kind of, yeah, they're okay. And Gary and I talked about that in the open. And sure enough, it sort of came to pass. They were just okay. I mean, I think they're better than that. I think they'll show that. I think it's a great learning tool for them to have lost, because I think Kirby, you know, sometimes you talk about, hey, you guys got to be ready every week, and it kind of goes in and out of 19-year-old ears sometimes. He's got their attention now. So if they don't play well against Florida, they're not as good as we thought they were.
You have been in production meetings here all week, and I'm sure that one of the subjects that comes up is the quarterback situation. Jake Fromm, Justin Fields. How much do you expect to be talking about that on Saturday with Gary there in the booth about when Fromm is playing, if Fields is coming in, and the maybe the separation of playing time between those two? How much do you expect that to be one of the storylines that y'all cover in a big way on Saturday afternoon?
You know, with a week off before Florida, if they've installed something specifically for Justin instead of just kind of helter-skelter throwing him in there, that will be a big story. If he's not going to play more, then he's just not going to play more the rest of the year. You know, Kirby has said all the way along, the plan is we don't have a plan. Well, if I'm a Georgia fan, at this point in the season, if the kid's going to play, I would say, Coach, have a plan. Don't just say we don't have a plan. Either have a plan for Justin Fields or just say, Justin, I'm sorry you didn't beat Jake out. It's Jake's show. It's one or the other. You just can't throw him in there and not have him throw. If he goes in and they let him throw, that's one thing. If he goes in and he runs for 3 yards and he hands off to Brian Herring on a jet sweep on the other one, I don't know why you're even putting him out there, because it takes away the flow of the game, especially if Jake's got something going tempo-wise. The in and out and in and out, it just clogs the game down. It disrupts the offense. I'd leave him on the I'd leave him on the sideline if you weren't going to play him, and actually let him play. That's my feeling.
Yeah, Brett, I think that's very well said, and I think the overwhelming majority of our audience agrees with every word of that. I am looking forward to Saturday. I'll be in Jacksonville, but I'll tell you, I'll have the game on my DVR recorded Saturday, 3:30 on CBS. I can't wait to hear your call along with Gary Danielson there in the booth. I love that CBS theme when it cranks up right before the game starts. It's a great television product, and it's fun to have Georgia back being a part of it. We'll see you on TV Saturday at 3:30. Brad, thank you so much for being back here today on DawgNation Daily.
Man, you're getting me fired up, and it's still two days away. I'll talk to you then.
Thanks,
see you,
Brad.
Man.
Yeah, really good stuff from Brad Nessler, and I think it's going to be therapeutic for many Georgia fans to hear him say and echo what a lot of Georgia fans have said about the quarterback situation of, if you're going to put Fields in, put him in, let him play. And, you know, if he's not going to play more in this game, then what's really going on here? I think that's really well said from Brad Nessler, and like I said, I think that's a reflection of a lot of the fan base here when it comes to that. Good stuff. Let me also remind you, as I promised a moment ago, that we have got a big event coming up at Marlowe's next week. I want you to go ahead and put this on your calendar, even though we got cocktail party stuff here this weekend. It's our final broadcast of the regular season. It's going to be Tuesday, October 30th. From the Marlowe's in Brookhaven. We return there, and we welcome another special guest. David Green was well received last night. How about John Stinchcomb being with us this upcoming Tuesday? Marlowe's in Brookhaven. It's 3575 Durden Drive there in Atlanta. We'll see you Tuesday, and then see you tomorrow in St. Simons for DawgNation Daily. Y'all have a great day. And on video. Boy, how about Eddie being late on his big day, getaway day for Eddie? I guess he's overpacking. I guess he was a little late getting on the set here, but really good stuff here. Let me pull up the comments. I'm sorry, I already have these pulled up. We'll get some comments rolling here, and we will get some chatter going. I'll pull up the YouTube here first, just because that's what populated in my search when I went with this. We'll get Facebook going here as well. Looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow in St. Simons. If you can't be there at St. Simons at the King and Prince Resort, looking forward to being a part of our broadcast here as well. Chevron Hannah says, I want to see Fields. There's no doubt that a lot of Georgia fans agree with Chevron on that. Enrique Murillo says, will Eddie lose the blindfold after the game? So that's a good question. He'll no longer be a blind squirrel at that point in time, because he'll found more than one nut. I think the problem is is that if you take Eddie's blindfold off, at that point in time, he's just a stuffed animal. You understand what I'm saying? Like, in order to be a character, I think he has to have the blindfold. Otherwise, he's just a stuffed animal. And I will tell you a little backstory here, that my son will occasionally watch the show, and he'll see that I've hijacked one of his stuffed animals and put it here on the desk, and he is not happy about that. Let me just tell you. He is not happy about that. But Eddie now lives on. Although C. Hill also agrees that Eddie needs his blindfold off. I just don't think the character works without the blindfold. RT367 says BAC in the Golden Isles. Looking forward to seeing you as well, RT. Thanks for being a part of that. Really excited about it. George L. says, what happens to Eddie if the Dogs lose? George, shudder the thought. What happens to any of us if the Dogs lose? The sun ain't coming up on Sunday, so what happens to Eddie if Georgia loses? The least of our concerns, because we're going to be dealing with a post-apocalyptic wasteland from the Atlantic Ocean back here. So not only will Eddie not be here on Monday, there's a chance I won't be here on Monday. So I don't even want to think about that. BA's daddy also reminding us to get the cast off of Eddie's hand. We will do that today. We absolutely will. I got to get some scissors to do that though. Somehow I wrapped it too tight. Now I can't get it off. Mark Carter says, what did you say that Mike Johnson was up to? So Mike is doing a radio show now. Now, Mike's still a good friend of ours. He's he did Real Talk with us on Before the Hedges, for instance, just a couple of weeks ago. So Mike is still a regular part of I talk to him all the time. We've done some broadcast stuff together here recently. But he is doing a radio show that airs at the exact same time the DawgNation Daily does. So him being on our show is just hard to do right now because he's on the air while we're on the air. There's probably going to be coming up a time sometime in the future once things slow down around here. We don't have 9,000 things going on. There'll come a time when I'll probably pre-record some stuff with him and have him back on the show from time to time. But as it stands right now, he's on the air while we do a show. That's why you haven't heard him on our show in a while. Fox Ninja Gaming says that Eddie looks like Ralph Macchio from The Karate Kid. Listen, I love The Karate Kid. I'm having a hard time seeing the resemblance here, but maybe so. Maybe Eddie could give Florida a crane kick on Saturday. I wouldn't mind that at all. Wouldn't mind that whatsoever. For those of you who are a little younger, one of the 80s movies that you definitely need to watch is The Karate Kid. Not that abomination that Will Smith's kid did a couple years ago, but the actual Karate Kid. You need to watch that. That's a great movie. That's certainly in my pantheon of very influential films growing up. I even liked Karate Kid Part 2. Karate Kid Part 3, not so much. But Karate Kid Part 2 was also really good. When they go to Okinawa, I'm only killing time while I'm pulling up the Facebook comments to get a few of these here as well. And unbelievably excited about being in St. Simon tomorrow, by the way. And really good stuff coming up from the stadium on Saturday. A lot like what we did for the LSU game. We'll do dog walk. We'll try to capture a lot of the scenes there. Hold on, y'all. All right, now we're into the Facebook comments. So we'll do a Kroger kickoff from on the field too. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. Scott Harris says, "BA, what's up with Marshall?" Marshall is out for Saturday. My understanding is. Matt Rukavina says, "Yesterday I brought up the defense. Let's talk about Jake and the hurry up. Seeing Jake in the hurry up, I think could be kind of an interesting situation here. That's one of the ways in which he may be able to regain some confidence. I think it's something that probably he needs. But, Matt, I'll also point you back to what David Green said a moment ago about how, one of the big things may be, and as much as I love throwing two tight ends, maybe you keep a tight end in pass protection on Saturday, get the extra blocker, give Fromm a chance to dial up the big throw in a man coverage situation when you can spot Grantham in a blitz. Make him pay for being greedy. I think that's very interesting. Casey Hagan says, will the DawgNation show be open at 10 a.m.? Yeah, as far as my understanding is, you can come see us at 10 a.m. as well. I don't know exactly yet where in King and Prince we're going to be, but yeah, you can come by and see us at 10 a.m. there. Have yourself a little, I don't know what your speed is in the morning, Bloody Mary, mimosa, screwdriver, whatever, but kind of go ahead and get going with that. Shane Guy says, can we join you in St. Simons? Yes, that is my understanding. Absolutely. We want you to come. We want you to be there to see us at the King and Prince Resort at 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., and you can also still get some rooms at the King and Prince if you want to. They have a couple left. You got to call them though and do that real quick. Maybe we can try to, if we get a chance, maybe we can throw the number back on the screen one more time. Call this number, get in while they still have some rooms. And if you're staying somewhere else, you want to come by and see us and just hang out, have some drinks, have some lunch, whatever, you can do that too. But if you're looking for a place to stay, or if you want to ditch your old room and get over here with the King and Prince, you can probably do that as well. We'll try to throw the number up for you in a second on that. Yeah, okay, here we go. 800-342-0212. It's 800-342-0212. Ask for that dog deal pricing. You'll be able to do that. Mike Bazell says, was it the real Ray Goff the other day on the show? I don't know. We occasionally have some recognizable names that pop up in our comment section. There was one time last year where one of the biggest recruits on the board for Georgia was the topic of the show, and he was also in the comment section. That's always a little surreal when that's going on. A lot of former players. Ray Goff, that may have been that may not have been a real account, but yeah, we have the occasional famous name that pops in here. Also, a lot of lurkers as well. I've discovered a lot of lurkers. Daniel Roebuck has Georgia 41-0. Let me tell you something. If Georgia wins this game 41-0, if it were to get the shutout this year that it almost got last year, I wanted that shutout like I wanted oxygen. I wanted that so bad. And, listen, you got to play backups. You got to get the, you got to get experience for those guys. Some of the experience some of those guys got a year ago, they're probably utilizing to great success for Georgia right now. But how nice would it have been to shut out Florida a year ago? Philip Sharp enjoying what Brad Nesser said about the quarterbacks. There needs to be a plan. Yeah, listen, I thought Brad was great on the quarterback stuff today. I thought he was really, really good. How about Todd David Brown with a really important comment? He says this is his dad's in hospice care. This is his last Georgia-Florida game he'll see. Please win, Georgia. Yeah, Todd, boy, I hope that you do get that special moment with your dad. My grandfather has passed away. Both my grandfathers have passed away, but one in particular was the one that took me to Georgia games. And I remember, in the late stages of his life, those conversations we would have about Georgia and, appreciating those final moments. He'd been a huge fan and just a really influential figure on me towards really doing what I do right now. And so it sounds like you're going to really soak all that up and take all that in, and I hope you do enjoy that. And for all of our sakes, I hope it's a Georgia win, but certainly for your sakes even more so. So, Todd, thanks for sharing that personal moment here, and I hope you get a chance to really enjoy that this weekend. Santiago DR, our buddy, says, our defensive front seven needs to step up, but our offense needs to get going. I agree with Santiago on both those fronts there. Miriam Martin Corbin, fresh off her trip to church last night, says, hey, y'all, heading to Jacksonville. Go Dogs. Got to stomp those lizards. See you there, B.A. Miriam, I'll see you there as well. We were getting ready to do the dog walk in Columbia, and I looked over there on the other side of the fence, and right there was Miriam Martin Corbin. So that was great to see, and we appreciate her being in the comment section here every day. T. Stumble, Tavares Taylor says that he's going to be in Jacksonville. Looking forward to having him there, part of the fun. These comments are coming fast here. Let me try to get a few more. Philip Sharp says, B.A., you're too young to need oxygen. I don't mean like an oxygen tank. I mean like oxygen, period. We all need oxygen. I mean, I wanted that shutout like I wanted my next breath, not the oxygen tank. I don't need oxygen. I'm not that out of shape, thankfully, at least yet. Let me get a few more here. We'll go back over to YouTube. Toby Register says, y'all going to be loving Fromm again on Saturday night. And I think there's a chance that Toby turns out to be right about that. That there is a very good likelihood, I believe, that Jake Fromm plays much better against Florida than he played against LSU. And a guy that has a pretty good track record here reestablishes that track record. Now, you got to play better than you get against LSU. And even if Fromm does play better, that doesn't completely erase the need for a better performance coming off the heels of LSU. But I am not turning my back on Fromm yet at all. Nor am I shutting the door on Justin Fields. I mean, I know this seems like I'm trying to split a difference here that's impossible to split, thread a needle that may be impossible to thread. I really think Georgia needs both these guys. I do. And I got no problem with playing two quarterbacks. I've got no problem with both of them enjoying great success. As it stands right now, it's not that, you're choosing the wrong guy necessarily. Just the quarterback position in general hasn't been good enough. Let's see, Let's see Fromm play better. Let's see Fields get more opportunity to show what he's all about here. And let's just see better play overall from the position. I like Kelly Burnett's line here. I'm not quite smart enough to understand it, but I think I get the general gist of it. He says he thinks that 31-3 is the time signature of the Mullen dance. That's a musical reference there to the beat. I like Kelly's line there. Really good stuff, Kelly. Cameron Merrill says, how many turnovers is Frank's going to have? I think that's a really important question. It'd be nice to force him into a couple here. He's going to try to be careful with his throws, but that'd be nice to do. Here's the other thing: that Florida has lived off takeaways all season long. I'm going to tell you right now, if they think they're going to utilize that formula to beat Georgia, I think they're going to be disappointed here. That's not the kind of thing that I believe is dependable. You can't count on in the second half of the season what you enjoyed in the first half of the season, oftentimes when it comes to that kind of stuff. But we shall see. We shall see. Dapper Dan, interesting point. He says, no one is really addressing the fact that they, meaning Florida, probably see this as a big-time revenge game. We are looking to have redemption for last week, but they're looking for revenge, which is different. Dapper, I think that's interesting. But here's what I'll also say. Unless the private conversation from Florida is different than the public conversation, I actually, if I was a Florida fan, and maybe I'm just so biased that I can't really determine how I would truly feel, but if I'm a Florida fan, I don't think I like the way they're talking about this game a year ago. Instead of being, hey, we got to get revenge for how bad, Georgia's made us look, it's a lot of excuse making of, well, it was Doug Nussmeier's play calling, or it was Jim McElwain saying he almost got fired. It's almost like they believe that if they had different coaches, they would have won that game, as opposed to what it really was, which was one roster, the Georgia roster, completely overwhelmed the, far inferior Florida roster. And, instead of being motivated to prove that the players are better than they showed, it seems like they're almost excuse-making for why the game was the way that it was. And as I said, maybe I'm just such a Gator hater that I can't see through my red and black glasses on that, but something about that doesn't quite sound right to me. Brian Kephart says we need to attack those Florida linebackers as one of their weak points. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think Brian brings up a good point. Diedrich Frazier says, B8, does Chaney need to scale back the offense for Fromm and make it more simple? I think that's an interesting question. You would certainly hope not. I guess what you would also hope is that from a pass protection standpoint that Fromm would have a little time. There was the one play that Tua Tagovailoa made last week, which I thought was really impressive, where – and they highlighted this on the SEC Network. Tomorrow we're going to have Chris Doering from the SEC Network on the program. And, on one of their shows, they were highlighting the Tua play against Tennessee where he looks for a receiver, not there. Looks for a receiver, not there. And then, keeps the play alive with his legs, goes to the other side of the field, and it's a touchdown pass. I forget who he threw it to. You'd love to see Fromm, whether it's, more pass protection or just a different level of play calling. You'd love to be able to see him utilize multiple options like that. Check down here, not check down to a easier throw, but just check off options and finally find the big opportunity there. So I don't know if it's watering it down that's necessary. I do think they need to call plays for him in such a way that gives him a chance to build his confidence back up. I would imagine that may be a little bruised here coming off of LSU, and some of those quick hitters that Fromm likes to throw. Maybe they find a way for him to get some of those going here as a way of just making him feel a little more confident. Kid with an interesting prediction says that Mark Webb comes up big in this game. That could be interesting to see. Let me pop back over to a Facebook here for a moment. I mean, the subject of Chaney comes up a couple times here. I mean, the one thing I will say about Chaney is that there is no doubt this is a game in which, he needs to he needs a, he needs a better performance. He does. I don't think he had a good play calling day against LSU, and I'm very slow to want to criticize play calling because I think oftentimes coming off a bad game, it's the easiest point in the world to bring up, and it just sometimes it feels almost like grasping at straws. But in this case, I don't think it's deniable that Jim Chaney needs to call a more easily understood game plan than some of the inexplicable stuff that seemed to happen against LSU. Winfred Steinspring says Franks gets rattled. Florida offense is not a great offense. Won 2 games with trick plays. I completely agree with Winfred on that this is not a great offense for Florida. But what I hope is, as a fan, I hope that Winfred's first point can be proven right here, that Franks can be rattled in this game. I mean, Georgia's still got to do some rattling here, whether that means, a DeAndre Walker or, a Jonathan Ledbetter or somebody, a little more from Walter Grant, who's been kind of quiet. You gotta rattle. You gotta rattle Franks for him to be rattled, and hopefully there'll be some action in the backfield that gives that a chance to happen. Derek Lewis says, why isn't Chaney using screenplays? They could be good this weekend. I think that's true. Now, maybe not exactly a screenplay, but certainly a couple dump-offs to DeAndre Swift were dropped against LSU. So they tried some running back passes. Like I said, probably not a full-on screenplay, but a dump-off to a running back, and they got dropped. Let me scroll down a little bit more. Chip Gromlich says, I should get Ron Corson to remove the cast from Eddie. Yeah, I should do that. I should ask him if he's busy to do that. By the way, we saw the tweet earlier that the blind squirrel stuff is on the, taped around the Butts-Mehre Heritage Hall. If they need Eddie to come do a pregame speech, I think he's available to do that. He doesn't say much in general, but for Georgia, I believe he might be willing to do that. I believe he might be able to come in and kind of say that. All right, let me pop back over to YouTube. Then we got to get ready to go. Steven Richardson says the offense needs to help the defense by keeping them off the field a little bit longer. Yeah, there were too many threes and out against LSU. Steven's right about that. Jason F. on YouTube says Florida's not going to allow time. We need to have quick hit stuff and screens ready. To a certain extent, Jason may be true on that. I know that Florida, with its secondary, which is probably pretty good again, they do want to play some of that press coverage. That's probably fair. But the one thing about Fromm is he is a good quick decision maker. And one of the things I've always felt like was his greatest strength is if there is a weakness right away at the line of scrimmage, he generally can find that pretty well. Now sometimes it's a misfire, like it was against with Godwin going back to the the Vanderbilt game, Vanderbilt or Tennessee, I can't remember. And then sometimes on a longer developing play, he missed Godwin again on what could have been a touchdown against LSU. But for the most part, when it comes to quick decisions, I think Ephraim is being pretty good at that. Mike D says Eddie says about as much as Bill Belichick. Yeah, that's about right. Ricky Murillo says, will our mascot be at the game? Yeah, I would expect to see Harry Dog and Uga there. Remember, this is just a short drive for Uga. Uga lives in Savannah, so this is a home game for Uga, basically. 404 Dog for Life says, anyone know where I can get some gator tail to fry up for Saturday? I don't know where they sell it. I don't know if Kroger sells it or not, but we had some fried gator bites at Marlowe's in North Lake a couple weeks ago. I got to tell you, it was good. I'd never had that before. It was really good, though. Really good. Oh, Enrique says not Uga, but the blind squirrel mascot. Yes, it is our hope to have the unofficial mascot for DawgNation Daily and St. Simon's on Friday. That is definitely our hope. Great question. Okay, we have got to get ready to get out of here. Really appreciate you all being with us. I thought great show today. Not so much me, but I thought David Green had some outstanding stuff, and I thought Brad Nesser was really strong. So really fun stuff there in that regard. Tomorrow, when we speak again, we'll be live in St. Simon's at the King and Prince Resort. Hope to see you all there. Hope you'll tune in if you can be. Jeff Sintel going to be with us. We will have a special interview with Chris Doering from the SEC Network. That's going to be a lot of fun. 4 p.m. tomorrow for our Gator Hater preview. A lot of that cool UGA vault footage that we've been showing you in the evenings here. We'll show you some more of that tomorrow as part of our show. It'll be a lot like what we did in LSU a couple of weeks ago, so that's going to be really cool. We'll have DN90 and everything else coming up later on today. And then, as I said, back tomorrow morning live, 10 a.m. in St. Simon's for DawgNation Daily there. So have a great day, and the Gator Hater Countdown rolls on.